Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm here with Nahshon Cook to visit about his book, Being with Horses. And I'm so excited to get to revisit this title and learn a little more about your writing process and sort of the motivation for writing this book. So let's jump in. My first question is really, so this was not your first title, but this was your first horse focused title. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what motivated you to write about horses.
So I think with the writing about horses now, it helps me really begin to see kind of my thought process inside of a lesson. A lot of the times it's just like I'm floating on a stream when I'm teaching in a lesson. There's not like a lot of things that are pre-thought out. I go with what I feel quite often, and I speak from that place. And it was just a really good thing to help me kind of see where I was. And so I'd stop and jot a few things down after I taught and see if I could make it into an essay or something.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I really enjoy about this book is, I would say, I'm not really sure how to describe the form in which the words take. Sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's prose, it's super non-conventional. And so is that intentional, or is that just who you are and how you're expressing those ideas? Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I walk through the world. I'm interested in spaces and how to allow myself to experience those spaces. And I think that some parts are expressed in poetry better, and some parts are expressed in prose better, and some parts are just their own thing, and I don't really know what to call it. But it's kind of like my hair, I just let it it has its own life. I mean, because so much of my work is built around gathering all the pieces and trying to put them back together so that a picture can form.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, and and there's so many parts of yourself that you find in gathering the pieces. And I feel like I try to live and write and share out of those out of the process of gathering and searching. And so, sometimes it's a sentence, and sometimes it's 10 pages, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it puts the reader in a very interesting frame of mind from the very beginning, because if you sit down to read a horse book, you're going to open the book with a certain kind of expectation that it will be like something that you've read before.
Right.
And I think, to me, that was sort of that like bolt of lightning the first time I read your work, was that it was not, it defied expectation in that it was unique in its own way.
It's an art gallery.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
It's an art gallery with a bunch of different pieces on the wall.
The work is incredibly personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, but it touches on so many universal themes that, like, I, as a lifelong horse person who has had experience with different teachers and trainers and horses and situations, how do you think that can be, that it can be both things, totally personal and universal?
Toni Morrison said the most universal thing that anybody has is their own story. And I believe her.
Mm-hmm.
That in the process of sharing my heart, somebody will find some of theirs.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah. What was the most difficult aspect of writing this book, or what were there difficult aspects of writing this book?
I'm always terrified when I share a piece of writing. I I think that everything I share with outside of my circle is it's an incredible act of courage. Um because I'm just I'm a pretty private person, and um and I feel safe, and I think that that's the I feel safe. Books are intimate things for me, and so I think that um it's one of those spaces in the world where I could feel like I could offer something that was true and wholly myself without sitting with somebody over a cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to be very close but still very far away,
Mm-hmm.
which is just, you know, something that I'm learning not to do so much, but it's always been a struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, because there's that, the fear, or the
Yeah,
uncomfortable
fear.
feeling of
Yeah.
sharing, the motivation to share, the feeling of that what was there was important to share must have been very strong to overcome that. So what is it that that helped you get it out the door? Like, how did you feel like the benefit was worth the risk?
People told me. People asked me to.
Mhm.
They're like, we wish we had something to read. I mean, because I just write stuff down and keep it on my computer.
Mhm.
I write every day. I write
Mhm.
for an hour every day. And I just have loads and loads of stuff on my computer. And um and it was a strange kind of coming together of many things, because there was that big interview with Warwick Schiller, and then there was Wendy Murdoch and a whole bunch of people, and all at once, so much of the world that hadn't been familiar with my work was suddenly familiar with my work, and folks wanted something to pay me for. We were coming out of COVID, um, and um, yeah, I had just spent some time getting this together, and decided that it was that it decided as a collection that it wanted to live, and so I offered it out.
Yeah. And what has been the most surprising response to the book? Has anybody's response surprised you?
Yeah, well, that people still are reading it, and that they go back over and over and over again, and like in the clinics all over the world, people bring copies for me to sign. It's
That's awesome.
heartening and unbelievable, and makes me very thankful that um I've been offered this life to live, and that it's helpful to people in such a beautiful way,
Mhm.
that they can that that folks can find language for how they feel but didn't have words to express.
Mhm. That's a great way of putting it. Can you talk a little bit about the horses that are featured in this book? I mean, they are characters as much as the work.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah. Well, I have my, I know for sure three of them are, I'm not sure all of them that are in here anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have my three personal horses, or three of my personal horses for sure. Nova, Remy, and my mare Mohawk. Um, they're all thoroughbreds. Nova is now 20 years old. And he's trained up to the high school. He's trained up to the air, the first airs above the ground, first of the airs above the ground. He's trained up to the Levad. I got him when he was 11, um, 10 going on 11, and I had just moved back into the country and um, from some time abroad, um, and um, some folks had called me saying that they wanted my help, um, that they wanted my help with him, and he was, the thing that I loved about him when I met him was that one of the trainers had said that she had hated him because he didn't follow the rules. And I asked her if she explained the rules to him in a way that he could understand. Um, and then, I had trained him for some time and they were selling him, and through a series of events, I had acquired him. Um, but my heart, my whole life is rooted in that horse's back. He's taught me so much about rehabbing horses. Um, just because he had kissing spine in his lumbar spine, and it was caused because of a messed up stifle, and the only thing that was available at the time were injections. And I, this is gonna be 10 years ago. I didn't have a job. I had just been in the country and had a family emergency that required me to give my time to, and I had acquired a horse and didn't have a job or a car, and so the fact that all of this has happened in such a short amount of time, where we go from that to us having our farm, has just been insane. But he's my light. And then I have Remy, who is he's my second to youngest horse. He's 8. He's 8. Um, I got him when he was just coming 3, I think. Um, and he's a thoroughbred from Mexico, who was bred to race, and he was also on the kill pin. Um, and I was teaching down south, in Fountain, Colorado, where there was a rescue that had um, horses, and I went and met him, and he came and ran up to me. He came and ran up to the gate, and I said that, and he's like, "Well, I'm your horse, bud." And I was like, "Ah, darn it." But he's been a really interesting challenge. He's very, very sensitive. He takes things way too seriously. Um, and he's learning to trade bravery for courage.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then I have my 10-year-old thoroughbred mare Mohawk, who I got um, because I had first met her after she was recovering from a cranial fracture. Um, and she was on stall rest, and they pulled her out, and all she did was stand on her hind legs. And I said, geez, if this mare ends up with the right person, she will be fantastic. Yeah.
Ta-da.
And so I was like, I gave them my thoughts about it, and she was just wild. She was wild. Um, and she had been retired as a racehorse and had been adopted as the first horse for this family's 12-year-old daughter.
Oh,
And she didn't work, obviously.
yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
Um, and so the contract was for, they would keep her for a year, and so what they did was that they just threw her in a field, and they let her sit there for that year, and then they sold her at an auction where the kill pin buyer, the kill pin person was the buyer. And so she ended up on the kill pin, um, and was, I think, bought en route, and brought to Colorado. Um, and she was another horse. I started having dreams about her. And I reached out to the folks who had her, and they said that she was recovering from a pelvic fracture and that I could come and see her. She was laying in the field, and some horses that were playing didn't see her laying behind the big round bell, and stepped on her. They
Oh
trampled
gosh.
her. Um, and so, from that she got kissing spine, and all of that stuff, and was kind of roach backed and everything. And so I got her to study the lumbosacral junction to see if I could fix it. And you know, um, last April, since last April, it's taken me about 3 years, 3 years to get her nervous system recalibrated enough for her body to start to change. But she's not roachbacked anymore. I've gotten about 3 inches length in her lower spine, and her pelvis has become untucked, and her coccyx is lifted. And the angle of her femur coming out of her right hip joint is more correct. It was almost shooting out at a 90-degree
Wow.
angle.
Yeah.
And so we have her hind legs almost parallel now. And it's just been through slowing movement down and really focused dressage work, and starting to can retrain her tongue so that the fascia in her body would reset. So it's been super fun.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
So all of those horses with super complicated physical and emotional
yeah,
histories.
yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to ask this question. So do you think that did they come to you to, before your work with them, had you had experience with horses with that level of trauma?
No,
I mean, them coming to you sort of changed the trajectory of your
my
life.
whole life. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And so what about you? What made you, there must have been some thing, some situation, some aspect that made you open to seeing them, the potential in them, or the wanting to heal them. Like, because other people, other trainers might have had these horses come across their path and their lives would have been very different.
yeah.
So can you, I'm not sure what I'm asking.
I think I hear you. All of my personal horses, those three, well, all of them that I have now, I have 4 horses now and a pony, and came, all of them came in a dream and told me that I was their person. Um, and it's just been so fun because these 5 horses that nobody else would want and that nobody else wanted, um, are helping so many horses around the world.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's the thing, is that, you know, Bob Marley, Bob Marley has a chorus in one of his songs. Where it says, "The stone that the builder refused shall be the cornerstone." And that's really what it feels like. I'm not sure, you know, because I was trained as a show writer. Well, I had worked as a show writer and a coach while I was in Thailand, and by then I had I had taught here in the States and in Southeast Asia, and then after Nova, I had done some teaching in Germany also. Um, and I I I I trust the horse's movement as their body's voice, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And like what hear and what I feel and what I see, it's a story that lets you know always that, every problem a horse has is rooted in somebody's past,
Hmm.
and so these horses helped me work through understanding that sometimes them ending up in this situation is the best someone could do, and it wasn't good enough. And so it helped me create a lot of room for mercy, and also helped me understand why it would be so important for me not to give up on people getting better to the point where that I wouldn't teach anymore, because I had given up on teaching people. I had gotten a job uh at the hospital, at the children's hospital out here, and I was getting ready to go to graduate school again. Um um and had invested in rental properties and all kind of stuff, and horses that needed help just started showing up. And then I did the Rocky Mountain Horse Expo the first time, which was an experience in many ways. But by the end of my first, at the end of my first presentation, there was a line 2.5 hours long outside of Nova's stall. People just wanting to say thanks for coming and how much it meant to them. And I had then gotten enough invitations to have regular clinics that I was able to stop working at the hospital.
Wow.
And yeah, and it has just happened. It's just happened in that way. There's just been the step has been clear, the next step has been clear, and um it's been really interesting. I was on the plane from Canada the other day thinking just how weird it is to be able to watch your evolution in real time, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and the things you learn about yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a passage or section from Being with Horses that you could share with us today?
Yes, of course. And I'll share the first one, the little poem, which kind of goes which kind of goes to what I was just saying. Number one, there's been more than one occasion that I've tried to stop training horses because people scared me. I didn't know how to effectively communicate with people. I'm most at home in my heart when I'm with horses because for me, horses are heaven. But horses come with people, and so I had to learn to love people too.
That's really beautiful.
And I've been thinking about this idea of heaven, and you know, my mind my mind likes swimming in the ocean of questions and possibilities and things, and I'm not quite sure what happens after we leave our bodies. But like when I talk about heaven in this book, and like when I follow the horse and find heaven in every step, and I'm not talking about, what I'm saying is that there is a experiential reality of holiness in the present moment that I oftentimes find myself in when I'm teaching people, or when I'm training my horses, or offering for a horse to show me how to help them feel better. There's this space where I find my mind resting in that emptiness between two thoughts, and time stops, and everything just slows down, and like the answers just float up like bubbles from the bottom of a boiling pot of water, you know? And like that's what it is for me. And I'm learning to teach in such a way that I can offer that space to people, if to join me if they want to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I mean, and in that way, horses, since this book, when I wrote it, I was in a really heartbroken space because of the things. Oh, that's when George Floyd had died and COVID was bad. There were all of these things that were happening, and it felt like my heart was being pounded with a sledgehammer. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's when I do my most beautiful writing, is when you is when I don't know why life is doing what it's doing, but I can't not trust it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? So when I was in Thailand, I made friends with some monks, some Buddhist monks, and I got to talk to them. And it really, being there helped me. Because they, at their funeral chant, they say they have, it's just so available. They go, birth, life, and death, there is no escape. And so I think where I was going is that at the beginning of this book, horses, because of my heart being so broken, had offered a space where they reflected back to me the places that I was hiding from myself.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're they're guiding me. They're the breath, when my breath is focused on me, it's more of a kind of seeing where I'm at, and when my breath is focused on them, it's them showing me where I'm going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so like I think that and so I think that the value, I'm still learning how to have fun with my horses, because so much of my work and life with them has been trying to ease pain that nobody else has been able to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
People bring their horses to me, and and through the work as a dressage trainer and just the fascination with movement patterns, there are things that are able to be undone that vets and body workers and all have not been able to figure out. Um, and with that comes the heartbreak of their people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I think that I'm kind of beyond, in my place of practice, I'm beyond people who have their horses for hobby, and more like our hobbies hurt them, and
Mhm.
like we need help we need help in trying not allow them to become dead right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know? Um and so um the world where people use horses as an escape is not I don't know what that looks like,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that consequently it allows me to stay very close. It allows me to stay very close to the possibility of people improving because they value their horses' lives so much that they're willing to change,
Mhm.
you know? And I think that perception from seeing that our purpose in a horse's life, no matter from beginning to end, is one of deep care.
Mhm.
Um, it changes it turns people into human beings.
Mhm.
It turns people into help for the world. Um, and I think what as I've gone through it with so many people, I've begun to see that part of the reason that a lot of these horses get better is because one, they've been broken by people and we're putting them back together, and the people aren't expecting the horses that they've broken to heal their own brokenness anymore.
Mhm.
Their hearts have become accountable, you know? And they see um they see how trying to escape can be quite damaging,
Mhm.
you know? And so in this way, horses have taught me how to help people just look squarely into the world. Like you not being aware that you're breathing in your chest only, and that your butt cheeks are clenched and your belly is in, is the reason why your horse is being triggered into a fear response. You
Mhm.
know, like those things. And like
Yeah.
that is what caused the irregular movement pattern that exacerbated arthritis in this way.
Mhm.
You know, like it's a I'm not quite sure everything that it means, but it's really powerful. It's really, really powerful, and I'm
Yeah.
really grateful to be able to help in that way
Yeah. Yeah.
from a trainer lens,
Right. Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And we're sort of beyond the book right now, but not really. I mean,
This is the whole thing the book is
yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and how the people that come for help, some of them are the people who created the issues, but some of the people are probably like you, where they've inherited a horse that
Yeah.
has things that they didn't. um
No.
and how do you like, I'm always curious about people's response, because I'm constantly thinking about, people don't make mistakes because they int- people very rarely do things wrong or
Right.
bad because they're trying to. um but sometimes looking at that, the reality of, I'm causing this issue, um can create just a whole
A
interesting
deluge of,
emotional.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it must be so intense to deal with not only the expectations that people come to in a clinic, but then the aftermath of facing reality. Like, how is that for you?
Well, I don't I don't I don't tell people within a training context what they need to do to begin with. I ask them how they want my help. And
Hmm.
then I tell them
Okay.
and then I tell them what I see. And
Hmm.
so like there was a young person who came to me in Ottawa on Sunday, when I was there, and she has this fantastic 2-year-old, and she says she wants to start it. Now, mind you, this is a 2-year-old and she's 16-1. And she says she wants to start learning how to do groundwork or in-hand work and long lining. And I told her, absolutely not. I said, this horse's body is not prepared to hold those questions yet, and may not be for another 2 years, at least.
Yeah.
And I explained to this young person how, like, I did that because my job as a teacher my goal is to try and help people in such a way that horses' lives are made better. Because I can't save everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I can't do that, nor do I want to. That's too big. I don't want to save the world, but I want to help save my piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
that if all of us do that, then we're in a pretty good space, you know? And so I'm super clear. I ask people what they want help with. I tell them what I see. I don't judge them,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and my love for horses requires me to have an open heart for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the most important part. People know that I am there for them, and that they can try, and that if we come up on a problem, we'll adjust it, we'll fix it. I'll help fix it to the best of my ability and qualifications, and we move forward. I think the thing is that horses, though, hold so much of our lives.
Yeah.
You know, they hold so much of our lives, and they hold so much of our hopes and so many of our secrets. Um, and I think that just creating a space where people feel safe enough to find their breath and to ask honest questions, and not be afraid of being punished, you know, and making it very clear that I'm there, that they're not there for me, but that I'm there for them,
Mm-hmm.
and that nobody has to be on their knees for someone to stand tall. You know, those are all really important things. And sometimes, you know, sometimes, especially with trainers, a lot of trainers' horses are in not the best shape because trainers are fixing everybody else's horses, you know? And so it's and what I'm really finding is just how hard it is for so many horse people to really take care of themselves so that they're available to do good work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and so, you know, I think that that's kind of it. Like, I want people to ride out of the bodies they have and not try and imitate what I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have years and years and years of training. Um, and two, like, I'm just weird and I see things a lot differently than a lot of other people. And so, you know, I mean, but I think as a teacher, the best gift that I can give someone is themselves,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's why, like, I can't teach like big group lessons because, you know, everybody is different,
Yeah.
you know, and within the space of one answer, there's so many different variables inside of that space,
Yeah.
you know? And so, um, that's part of why I'm going out and teaching now, because it's impossible for folks in a lot of spaces to get their horses here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And like, if I can help in any way, then I will. You know,
Awesome.
I think this is a I think that the purpose of my life is to be helpful in this space right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, what question did I not ask you about being with horses?
Oh, I don't know. I think that, like I said, you know, my power as a teacher and as a writer come in following things, not in leading them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
You know, and so, I mean, and that's how I remain helpful because I can kind of see where people are going and which way that they need my help. So, um, but this is it's a strange little book, it's a magical little book.
It is.
Um, it's a very strange piece of writing and collection of writing. Um, but I'm happy that it came through me,
Yeah. I think we all are. I think we all are very happy that it's in the world.
you
Yeah.
know? So yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to visit, and I hope you're working on some new writing that we'll get to visit about in the future.
yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thanks, Nahshon.
Uh-huh.